The world of the Forever Winter is one of vast desolation. Impossibly large structures and ceaseless pillars of smoke loom over the landscape. Autonomous armies wage eternal war, while the remnants of humanity are ground into bone meal by the cogs of the death machine. Those who hope to survive live like rats, always scurrying, always hiding, always watching from the cracks. There are a number of videos on my channel devoted to exploring the vast out-of-bounds areas that lie beyond some of the levels. But there's another side to that exploration. Just as there exist the vast empty spaces outside of playable maps, there also exist small, confined spaces within the boundaries of maps. Spaces that you just might be able to squeeze your way into. But will you be able to leave again? Liminal space is a topic that's very popular on YouTube. Abandoned transitional spaces that no longer serve their original function, or that look uncanny, can evoke feelings of unease. But liminal spaces are not the only category of spaces that can evoke such feelings. Void space is an architectural term that refers to a fully enclosed, unfilled space that exists within a structure. The spaces between walls, or beneath the floor, as an example. The architecture of the Forever Winter happens to contain some rather interesting void spaces. This video is just going to be an introduction to this topic. So I'm going to cover Scorched Enclave and Scrapyard Nexus, simply because these two levels have the least to talk about, and aren't really complex enough to deserve their own video. Once upon a time, earlier in the game's development, the orange rocks of Scorched Enclave had very many collision issues. There were a ton of places where you could just fall inside the rocks. None of that ever really helped you get out of bounds, because there were still invisible walls inside all of the cliffs. But if you fell inside of a rock, you needed to remember exactly where you fell in, because that would be generally the only spot nearby that would allow you to jump back out. And if you forgot how you fell in, or if you fell through like multiple textures, you could be in trouble. Almost all of these holes have since been patched, but there is one part of the cliff that you can still fall inside of. Strangely, there are now rock textures inside the cliff. Those didn't used to be there. But in any case, this will probably also be patched up at some point, and after that, Scorched Enclave will be pretty barren of forsaken places that I know how to get to. Although Scrapyard Nexus is the smallest map in the game, it still has more to offer than Scorched Enclave. Starting with our first truly forsaken place. Many spawn locations in the Forever Winter are protected by what seems to be invisible walls. But really it's not. It's a one-way wall that pushes both enemies and the player outward. However, you can overcome that push by mantling in an appropriate spot. Once you're up here, what you do not want to do is go over into this corner. Because if you fall down here, you live here now. This is your home.
All packed up.
And you can spend as much time as you want trying to escape. But eventually, you will have to stop worrying and learn to love the landmine. This is, however, simply a test of our faith. For if we venture to the opposite side, you will find that those with great resolve are lifted up by the hands of angels and delivered to the promised land. From up here, we have access to many different Forsaken bits, although they may not technically be void spaces. I mean, it's a space between a wall and a void, so I guess it's still a void space, but not the same type. You know what, never mind. The ground extends beyond the walls of Scrapyard in many places, all around the map. Falling down to any of these exterior ledges guarantees that you will be stuck there until you throw yourself off into the void. In future entries of this series, I want to talk about the psychology of fear, phobias, and maybe even a little bit of neuroscience. Because there are places in this game that are much, much worse than a ledge over nothing, or underneath a pile of rubble with a landmine for a roommate.